until the season changes and suddenly everything seems darker, less lively, and you lose your motivation to get out of bed.
If you struggle with depression, you're not alone. In fact, 1 in 5 people experience some form of depression, and no matter the time of year, it may affect your behavioral or physical ability to live a happy life.
At the American Psychiatric Association Foundation, we understand what you're going through, and we're here to help. Our vision is to build a mentally healthy nation for all, because we want you to live your best life and be your best you all year round. We work every day to eliminate stigma, combat mental illness and substance use disorders, and advance mental wellness.
If you or someone you love needs help, you are not alone. Please visit mentallyhealthynation.org to learn more.
They are our love bugs and companions. They are our pets, our family, and they make life better. When we face unexpected challenges, so do our pets. That's why we're on a mission to support people and their pets. Whether donating a bag of kibble, sharing an Instagram post of a lost cat, or welcoming a foster pet into your home, every bit of kindness counts. Visit petsandpeopletogether.org to learn how to be a helper in your community. Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
91.3 FM WBNY is proud to present Democracy Now! With Amy Goodman.
Welcome to Democracy Now!
Award-winning investigative journalism.
Is the NRA imploding?
Providing relevant analysis that makes you think.
Secret State Department documents, including evidence of U.S. war crimes.
Fact-finding reports you will not hear elsewhere. Democracy Now! Airs Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. on 91.3 FM, WBNY, Buffalo.
Here we go, living for the people. This is L. Nathan Hare, your host here for this next hour. Providing you with our broadcast focus on providing you insight into events shaping our national and regional world and the facts behind those events and policies that are shaping our world for today and for tomorrow. Join us weekly on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. following Amy Goodman's Democracy Now! Program. And of course, our program is live, so you can call and you can join our discussion. Really hope that you will. Our number here again is 716-878-5104. That's 716-878-5104. We're missing our in-studio audience of one, Norm Carter, who's out in the world scraping together more money so he can float his boat on dollar bills. Okay, that's one way to look at it. But we're here with Willie H., who is our engineer. He's the one that makes it possible for us to do the live streaming of this program. Welcome back, Willie.
Welcome, everybody, to Living for the People with L. Nathan here. Also, Liberation is coming up July 21st, 22nd, 5 p.m. to 5 p.m. I forgot the address. I'll give that to you later. But call us live here at 716-878-5104. That's 716-878-5104.
Yep, and I apologize for my stumbling in the introduction. I do a number of radio programs, and I kind of mix together the intro for one program into another. But we're here with Living for the People. I wanted to take today's program and tackle something, at least my first piece on this. It seems to me that we have a body of people, Republicans as a whole, and certain members of the media as a group that just don't want to hear it. And what I mean by what they don't want to hear it is they don't want to hear good news. You have lots of good news, and yet it seems like the significant portion of the people in this country, I think a majority of the people in this country, seem to think that in spite of the good news, there's really bad news. And the bad news is we think that there's going to be some bad news someday. And so we're feeling that feeling of bad news tomorrow. We're feeling it right now.
Well, Mr. Hare, let me cut you off. Mm-hmm. When you say good news, it's not that. Good news for them, bad news for others. That's what you meant to say.
Yes, exactly. Right. But CNN published a report written by Stephen Collinson. It was entitled, "Biden is Close to the Point of No Return with Americans on the Economy." This report was written on May 5th of last year, and we've seen it compound since that time. Think about what the implication is of that statement. Biden is close to the point of no return with Americans on the economy. And here's what the report said. CNN published a poll stating that the president's repeated efforts to highlight undeniably strong aspects of the economy, the economy's post-pandemic rebound, and to offset blame for its bad spots, he says that it's just not working. The strong economy, Biden, talking about the strong economy, and there's some soft spots, but we're really doing pretty well, in the economy. He says that's just not working.
Well, can I put my input in? From my view, my community, my perspective, I see people working. I'm working now. I see people working, a lot of jobs in my community. Yet, are there homeless? Sure they are, but on those same streets, there are people celebrating, spending money. So I would have to say on the whole Buffalo, my community, people are making money.
I would say to you that across the board, people are working more, people are earning more, people have less stress, crime is down. On every measure that you would look at the society, except one big one that we're going to talk about in just a second, on every other measure, things are significantly better than they were a couple of years ago. Even if they aren't the best that they've ever been in the history of the world, you would still celebrate the fact that things are so much better than they were.
Yeah.
From 2 years ago, we were suffering from the result of the pandemic. The recession this country went through. When Joe Biden took office, the country was in the midst of a recession. If we recall, in 2020, the last year of the Trump administration, this is not Trump's fault. He didn't make the COVID-19 virus, occur in the United States. That's not his fault.
No, that's not his fault.
He didn't do a good job of managing the fact that it occurred and doing the things that needed to be done to address it. He was so giddy about trying to get people, back to work that he endangered the health of, in my view, millions of Americans. But that's a separate issue. That's a policy issue, and we can debate about that. It was not his fault that the COVID-19 pandemic occurred. But a recession occurred as a result of that. Mm. Joe Biden comes in January of 2021, and he has to deal with that recession that's in his hand. He had Afghanistan in his hand. He had the disconnect of largely women from the workforce. And he had to deal with that right then and there. So when you look at the bad news, you had the recession, in 2020, the beginning of 2021. You had the unemployment had gone up to 6% at that point. Mm-hmm. You had, in fact, at one point, you had a 20% unemployment rate, in 2020.
Right.
You had GDP, had shrunk by about 40% on a rate of about 40% annualized during that time period. We had bankruptcies going on in the United States, wage loss. How many people lost wages? You had something like 23 million people got kicked out of their jobs in 1 month.
Wow.
In 2020. Think about that in terms of wages that were lost, right? Mm-hmm. If those people average $50,000 a year, then we're talking about almost $1 trillion or more than $1 trillion in wages that were lost during that time period. That's a catastrophe, right? I mean, right. The country was in real bad shape. Mm-hmm. Not Donald Trump's fault. He didn't cause the pandemic to occur. Biden inherited the pandemic, and that's what he had to deal with. So what did he do? You look today, wages have not only has unemployment shrunk down to 3.2%. I think that's a pretty good unemployment rate in the history of the country. Has the unemployment rate, come way down, wages have gone up. for the last 2 or 3 months, wages have outpaced inflation.
Right.
And inflation's been high.
Because I remember pre-pandemic, the average wage was 15. I was in there, and now 18 and 20 is kind of what people are making now, even McDonald's.
Right. And women went back to the workforce, got back into the workforce. They got the lion's share of the jobs that were created in the last 3 months. The second quarter of this year went to women. So the harm that was done to women is being corrected. In terms, I'm not saying harm like somebody did it on purpose. I just mean that women suffered the most in the pandemic. Right. Women are benefiting the most in the recovery.
Not only that, I see businesses. I'm talking about my community now, Buffalo. Businesses, people having several incomes, different streams of income coming in. So there is an improvement as far as people money coming into.
And I mean a tangible improvement. I'm not talking about like a little tiny improvement that nobody can see.
Right.
This is tangible. If you got 4 or 5 people in your family, at least one person in your family got a job.
Right.
In the last 6 months. Right. So the supply chain, that was the reason why we had the inflation rate that we were enduring. I'll talk about in a second. We had that inflation rate because the pandemic caused worker shortages in other countries who sold products that were needed in the United States. They couldn't get the products out of wherever they were being produced onto the boats to get them, from the boats to the shore, the harbors of the United States, and then get them off the boats when they were in the harbor, get them off the boats and get those products on trucks and get those products distributed around the country. Well, that was hard to do when you got, 20, 30% of the people are not working because they're sick or they're afraid of getting sick. So you had the supply chain disruption. You had the United States having core things that the United States needs in order to make products that the United States either makes or orders to be made by other countries, like microchips and semiconductors. Because you had a shortage in those things, you just couldn't produce enough of what was needed by the country at that point. So when you have a high supply of money and a low supply of goods and services, the price for goods and services goes up. That's just the law of supply and demand. That's what occurred, right? And so when you had all these people that had been unemployed in 2020 starting to flush back into the pocket, I'm talking about 23, 24 million people flushing back into the job market, making money, an average of around $50,000 per person per year. Now you're talking about over $1 trillion coming back into consumers' hands that they want to spend. But the number of refrigerators that were made available didn't go up. The number of washing machines that were made available didn't go up. The number of cars that were being made available didn't go up. So you had a huge increase in the supply of money in consumers' hands, but you didn't have a huge increase in the supply of goods and services that were available to be purchased by the consumers. That's what caused the inflation rate. But when we look at the inflation rate today, and this is, when I'm looking at Collinson's article, he talks about the main culprit for why people feel, so down on the economy, which I disagree with his conclusion that people feel down on the economy. People are being told that the economy is not good, and they're believing what they're being told. Right. It's not that they're experiencing a bad economy. They're being told that the economy is bad.
You know what I think it is too, Mr. Here? I think that a certain section, like the upper middle class, they had the privilege of having the money, so they can basically, if they wanted somebody to work for them or do something, they could throw them pennies. They can't do that no more because people got different streams of income. I remember listening to this girl. She works a 40-hour job, but she was driving, door dashing, or whatever. And they called her in. Could you come in today? And she basically, I'm not coming in today. Today's my day off. Right. And she's making money another way. So, and she's probably making more money driving than actually her job. So, no, she's not coming. And I think that might be the problem the middle class, upper middle class, they don't have that control that they used to have. Maybe that's what they're complaining about.
Well, they're complaining, that's for sure. According to Collison's article, he says that inflation is the main culprit for Americans' sour attitude about the economy. He says that it's been decades since Americans have experienced this demoralizing cycle of spiraling cost. He says the shock is twinned with punishing gasoline prices that hammer family budgets. He says in the Democratic Party seems stuck in a dangerous political position of insisting that the economy is doing well while voters think that it's in the tank. Now think about that statement. What's the factual part of that statement? Mm-hmm. The party thinks it is stuck in a dangerous political position of insisting that the economy is doing well. Well, that's a factual thing. Is the economy doing well or is it not doing well?
Right.
Clearly, the economy is doing well.
Right.
While the voters think it's in the tank. If the voters think it's in the tank, but the economy is factually doing well, why do the voters think that the economy is in the tank? Because somebody is telling them that. Right. And they're believing in somebody. So if you're used to getting your news from Fox News or Newsmax, or whatever these, QAnon or whoever it is you all are listening to, you take whatever they say as if it's gospel. Even though your lying eyes tell you that, boy, Johnny was unemployed for most of last year. He's working now. Mary was unemployed. She's working now.
Right.
I just got a $2 an hour raise. Joe over here was making $7.20 an hour. They changed minimum wage to $15 an hour. He's making twice as much money as been making. You see all of that. That's what your eyes see. Mm-hmm. That's what your ears hear. But your lying people, your talking heads, in the media, and these political opponents, I guess is the best way I could describe them, telling you that, well, the economy doesn't look as good as they act like it is. Inflation's, going to be with us forever. And recession is right around the corner. We've been expecting it now for the past 26 months, the past 28 months. But it hasn't happened yet, but we know it's coming. There's going to be a bad economy sooner or later, and we're blaming Joe Biden for the bad economy that we're going to have in the future. You got a great economy right now. You don't give any applause for the economy that we have right now, but you're going to hold him to account today for a bad economy that you claim is going to happen tomorrow that has not happened yet. That does not make sense.
Right.
But that's what's going on right now.
Right.
And it tells you something about the American public. Who are the people that are reasoning like this? Who are you? What is in your head that makes you think like that?
This is like it's like somebody predicting the forecast. Oh, tomorrow's going to be a dreary, cloudy, some rain. It's not going to be a good day. And then the day comes, and everybody's enjoying. Everybody's outside. The sun is out. It drizzles for maybe about a minute or two, but everybody's enjoying the sun. And these people say, but it was predicted it's going to be bad. It's going to be, no, we're enjoying ourselves. We enjoying the sun. We having fun. We spending money. Yeah,
but these people sit around with their mouths poked out saying, I know the sun is shining right now.
Right. That's exactly it.
But I know it's not going to shine every day.
Right.
What are you going to do about that?
Right.
Right. So, again, in Collison's report, he says that according to his poll, or the poll that he's reporting on, he says that 94% of Republicans rate economic conditions as poor. Now, you have to ask yourself, the Republicans are the wealthy people, right?
Right. That's what I'm talking about.
They're the ones that have money.
That's what I'm talking about.
So if they got money and they're getting more money,
right,
they're getting higher money now than they've ever gotten before, right, why are their mouths poked out?
Well,
why are they thinking that it's raining?
I think because some of the poor people, like I said, I think it's part of control too. It's not just having money, it's what you can do with your money. And if you feel like you don't have the power that you had before, this poor guy that you could, use as a puppet, you can't use him as a puppet. He's making money. He's doing good stuff. I could give you 8 hours. I can't give you 16 hours.
See, I don't know if I can accept that. That may be a part of the story.
I think that's a lot of part of the story.
But that's not the whole story. 94% out of 100% of Republicans think that the economy is poor when we have a 3.2% unemployment rate. I'm going to show you in a moment about the inflation rate, that the inflation rate is not what you've been told to perceive. It's a much different story than what they're saying. You got women rejoining the job market at record numbers and so on. You have corrected the supply chain problems the United States had. The stock market, was almost back about 96, 97% back to where it was at the end of February of 2020. I mean, you've had all of this positive news that you still have, still positive, still going strong, and yet virtually every single Republican in the country thinks that the world is going upside down, the world is going bad. How can that possibly be? Another part of the report says that 81% of independents and 54% of Democrats also think that the economy is poor. So this is not people's experience.
Wow.
This is people listening to people in the media.
Wow.
Because the only thing that ties all of this together is people are listening to somebody. The question is, who are you listening to and what are they saying to you? So the Republicans only listen to Republican-oriented media.
Right.
The Fox News and Newsmax and I don't know what these other places are, Stormfront, these other, Breitbart, they listen to those stations. And every day they're finding some way to say that whatever is going on in the country, it's bad. That Biden's not doing it well. He's not doing it fast enough. He's not doing what he should have done. Bad, all the way down the line. No matter what the facts are, they just, say it's bad anyway. But because that's what the Republicans only listen to them, they don't listen to MSNBC or NBC or CBS or who am I missing there? ABC. They're not listening to those main stream stations. They're listening to their political-oriented stations. But the Democrats are listening to CNN. This person who wrote this report is a CNN reporter, not from Breitbart. He's not from Stormfront. He's not from Newsmax. This is a CNN correspondent. So these are people that normally appeal. CNN appeals to the moderate and Democrat, kind of wing of the population in this country. And this is what he's saying. That's what his listeners are listening to what he's saying. So half of the Democrats think that the country is going sour when that's clearly not the case.
Wow.
Okay? So if you can't get your own affiliated media to tell your story correctly, and the Republicans' media is just lying all day and night, how can you possibly have anything other than a soiled, consciousness of the American public?
Well, Mr. Hare, could it also be, I know, and what you're saying is probably true, but could it be also maybe the fear that holding the privilege or control of money, maybe there's people of color that's getting positions that normally it'd be harder for them to get. Maybe that's the reason for the law with the affirmative
action.
Affirmative action. Maybe that's why because they feel like, whoa, these people of color are taking, maybe some of the jobs that my children could have on mine.
That's what the Republicans are telling their public. That affirmative action is black people taking jobs that should go to white people. The thing that's so stupid about this affirmative action conversation, just to go off on a tangent for a second, is that the people who actually get access to position or seats at these colleges that are highly competitive in terms of you being able to get into the highly selective in terms of who they will accept in their freshman classes. The people that get there by the route of affirmative action it's not because they're not qualified. It's that you just have a high number of people who have A averages, who were valedictorians or salutarians of their graduating classes, and you only got a minimum number or a certain number of seats. So if you take all the Dartmouths and Columbia universities and Yales and Harvards, Stanfords, UCLA, if you take all of those schools together, their freshman classes may only be 30,000 people, 40,000 people combined in their freshman classes.
Right.
Well, you got 330 plus million people in this country. You got almost 50 million black people in this country. So, black people alone might have 40,000 people that are A students.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So there's like a lot more students who qualify to get into these schools than there are seats that these students can sit in.
Right.
Historically, because these have been white serving institutions, they just gave the seats to white people. And black people didn't get the seats. Black people all this time had the academic credentials to qualify to get into those schools. They were just being denied enrollment because the universities and colleges wanted to enroll their own people.
Right, their own, right.
That's what they did. Right. So affirmative action was just to make sure that you were not denying enrollment opportunities to African people, that you were making some reasonable effort to open up your doors so that African people and Asian people and Hispanic people and Native American people have the same opportunity as white people do to be able to get into these highly competitive schools. That's what affirmative action is about. That's the same thing that happens with jobs. You don't have people that, can't add 2 and 2 and get 4, and they're just being affirmative action into a job that requires, a master's degree in accounting. That's not what happens, right? You have tens of thousands of black people that have master's degrees in accounting, but you only have 5,000 or 6,000 accounting jobs. So employers are hiring their own people. They're not hiring. They have enough supply of their own people that they don't have enough jobs for their own people in those fields.
Right.
Let alone employing you.
Right.
Now that's horrible, but that's the reality.
Right.
Okay. I mean, if you're going to attack a problem, you have to actually describe what the problem is so you know what you need to do to solve it.
Right.
So affirmative action was a way to get qualified people an opportunity to be able to get into a college seat or get into a job seat that they were eminently qualified for.
Right.
It wasn't that they weren't qualified for the job. It's that the people who held control over the job or that college opportunity just weren't granting that opportunity to African, Hispanic, Native American, Asian people. That's what was the problem. Let me go back to this inflation thing before we hit to the break. I was just trying to get my arms around this inflation thing. I think I talked about this a couple of months ago, that the inflation rate is not what they're reacting to is not what I think you should be looking at. Because prices were jacked up in the latter half of 2021 going into 2022, you had high prices because, as I said, you had lots of people that came back into the labor force who are now got paychecks, like over $1 trillion of new money is in consumers' pockets now. So you got a lot of money out here chasing goods and services, but you didn't have a lot of goods and services to be purchased. So the price of goods and services went up. So if you looked at inflation comparing this year to, say, July of last year, you probably got a 5 or 6% difference in the cost of goods and services. But if you compared July of this year to, say, July or June 1 of this year, the last 30 days, you'll find, according to this, I'm not making it up, this is according to the U.S. Department of Agriculture's Economic Research Service. I went to their report, Summary Findings, Food Price Outlook for 2023, their July 13th report. It says, I'm quoting, the food at home grocery store or supermarket food purchases, not the food you purchase at the restaurant. The food you purchase that you carry home to cook at home. Not like me, because somebody has to cook for me, but for the rest of you that cook at home, right? You know, that have skills. So this is the food at home bill. According to the Consumer Price Index, it increased. If you go from May of 2000 of this year, 2023, to April of 2023, the Consumer Price Index increased 0.1%. Now, for those that don't do counting real well, that means if that rate persisted every month through the rest of a year, a 12-month period, that would be an inflation rate of 1.2%.
Okay.
Wouldn't we all be happy with an inflation rate of 1.2%? Did I miss somebody?
No.
Would you be happy if we had an inflation rate of 1.2%?
I think I would.
Would you be real happy or just kind of happy?
Kind of happy?
I think I'd be real happy, because if it's not 1.2%, you got deflation.
Right.
Then you got people losing money.
Right.
So my point is that the government says that the target that they have for inflation is 2% per year. We're on a pace right now to have an inflation rate over the next 12 months of 1.2% per year. That means that inflation is under control. We're doing great on inflation. Now, if you look at it year over year, from this point in the year to the same point of last year, the inflation is significant. But that's because we had, real high price points, at that point, as a result of what happened due to the factors that I talked about. The number of people that were now working versus the amount of goods and services that were available for people to buy. We had a bottleneck there. And whenever there's a bottleneck, people they're gonna get you for more money because they can. It's not even because they have to. Businesses are gonna just take more money from you because they can. So that's what the inflation rate was really all about. They're trying to give the impression that inflation is out of control when it's actually in control right now. Now, you can't undo what's already been done. If you find you have a problem, you have to start working on your problem.
Right.
Clearly, the Biden administration accepted the inflation issue as a problem, talked about it in 2021 and 2022, and did things to try to correct the inflation problem. Well, those corrections are working. The inflation rate is much, much lower now. In fact, it's almost half the rate that they say they want it to be economically for the country. Why isn't that being talked about that way? Why isn't that the story?
Right.
All right. I do a little bit of railing and whatnot. You all know that's how I am. So please stay with me. We'll see you on the other side of the break here at Living for the People at 91.3 FM WBNY.
Protect his home and family from disaster, Steve used courage, wisdom, and his camera phone.
That should do it.
Way to go, Steve! By simply taking digital pictures of his family's important documents, Steve can always have them stored safely online, no matter when disaster strikes. Learn other simple ways to protect your home and family before a natural disaster at ready.gov. That's ready.gov. A message from FEMA and the Ad Council.
91.3 FM WBNY is proud to present Democracy Now! With Amy Goodman.
Welcome to Democracy Now!
Award-winning investigative journalism.
Is the NRA imploding?
Providing relevant analysis that makes you think.
Secret State Department documents, including evidence of U.S. war crimes.
Fact-finding reports you will not hear elsewhere. Democracy Now! Airs Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. on 91.3 FM, WBNY, Buffalo.
All right, welcome back to Living for the People. This is L. Nathan here, your host. We're here with Willie H., who does the live streaming of the program. Welcome back, Willie.
Welcome, everybody, to Living for the People with L. Nathan here.
So let me just hit a couple of points before I go into my next subject. Number one, if we look at the July report on the year-over-year inflation rate, that year-over-year report shows inflation now down to 3%. If you compare July of this year to July of 2022, down to 3%.
Now, Mr. Hill, when you say 3%, what does that mean?
That means that a price of bread that
Right.
you buy today, let's say it costs $1. If it costs $1 in July of 2022, it would cost you $1.03 today.
Okay.
Right? So it's a 3% increase.
Gotcha.
Right? And hopefully inflation will continue to decline. So the price of that bread will come down a little bit more
Gotcha.
over the course of the rest of the year. But, when bread was going to cost you 12 cents, $1.12, to buy a slice of bread, you were going to have an issue with that because a 12% increase in prices is kind of hard for you to eat, right?
Right.
So that's what we were facing several months ago. But we're not facing that now.
Okay.
That's the point I'm trying to make is the reasons why we had the inflationary spiral was not because of something that Joe Biden did. That's what Joe Biden inherited from the pandemic and the recession that the pandemic caused. And I'm not blaming Donald Trump for that. He was the president at that time, but I'm not blaming him for that because he didn't cause the pandemic. But the pandemic did cause the recession. And the recession did cause all these 24 million people to become unemployed. And the unemployed people became the reason why hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of people stopped paying their rent.
Right. Now, Mr. Hare, okay, so you said, because what really is getting me, the Republicans, them complaining about it, doesn't bother me as much as when you said Democrats and they're complaining. So there must be something that not only what they hear, but something that they're feeling or that they're seeing that affecting their pocketbook. So it's got to be something for them to be complaining about. Because when people are doing good, they don't complain.
Well, you would think that would be the case, but the report says that, and it's another part of this study that I'm going to share with you, says that people tend to accept what they hear. Not just they accept what they hear, they accept bad news more quickly than they accept good news.
Right.
Bad news threatens you. So when you feel threatened, then you got your fight or flight response, right? You're either going to run or you're going to put your dukes up.
Right. Okay.
But if you hear that something good is happening, well, I'm not threatened by it. Nothing bad's going to happen to me. Okay, something good happened. You don't get all amped up necessarily by it unless it's something that's real good, like $100,000 appears at on your doorstep or in your mailbox that you didn't know was going to happen. You'd be really pumped up about that. But if $1 appeared in your mailbox or on your step, you just pick up the dollar and wouldn't even mention it to anybody, even though it was a good thing.
That's correct.
So that's the distinction here that I think is going on. The economy now is only 1.6 million jobs fewer than the economy had in it in February of 2020. So we've virtually made up almost all of the job losses that occurred due to the pandemic. According to this report, the total number of unemployed people in this country fell to 6 million people in March, as well as the number of permanent job losers, people that lost their jobs permanently, which declined by 1.4 million. Now, those are big numbers, but this is a big country. So when you start talking about 340 million people, 6 million people unemployed in a workforce of almost 200 million people, that's not a lot of unemployed people in your workforce.
Right.
Okay.
Well, once again, I still think there's some justification for somebody complaining. And I know businesses are feeling because they can't keep people for a long period of time or they can't find people. And I see a lot of signs of, jobs. We need people to fill this job. So maybe that has something to do with it.
But think about that. If the issue for business is you can't keep workers because the workers are saying, I can do better working someplace else.
Right.
So they go and work someplace else. That's not bad economics,
Right.
right? That's actually a good economy. The economy is good enough that people have alternatives
Right.
to where to work.
I think that's part of it.
Right.
People
They're not like slaves anymore.
Right.
you
I
know?
think that's part of it.
Yep. So, and then in March of this year, women made up the majority of new employees. And then they talked about average hourly earnings increased by 13% in March, 13 cents up to, this is average earnings, $31.73 an hour. Now, I'm going to wager that most of the people in the Buffalo market don't make $31.73.
Yeah.
73
I don't
cents
know
an
a
hour.
lot of people that's making $31.
According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, however, that's the average income for workers in the United States.
I know it has went up, but it's not. It's where I see it is in the 20s, like 20.
Yeah.
The average. Is
So if
20
anybody
something.
should be doing any complaining, it should be those of us in Western New York, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I don't see 20s, but not 30s.
Right. But the average increase in wages over the past 12 months has been a 5.6% increase in wages. Wages have gone up significantly more than inflation over that time period. So Stephen Moore, who's writing for Fox News, he published an article entitled 7 Ways Biden is Wrecking Our Economy and Undermining Our Country. And this will help you understand the insidious things that are being said, but being repeated by the media in this country that are confusing people or deluding people into actually attacking the success of the administration that you would think they would want. Even if you don't like Republicans, if they were doing things that were resulted in better wages and more job opportunities and better educational opportunities and better housing, you would celebrate that. You wouldn't say, I don't like them and I don't like what they did, if what they did was something that you wanted to see done. Well, Biden is doing the things you say you want to see done, but you're not celebrating it. You're actually bad-mouthing it. So, for example, Fox News article, which was published in October of last year, pushes claims that the Biden administration has been a horror show. This article characterizes the media framing the news we have seen since the end of the Trump administration. Number one, Fox News claims Biden seeks to dismantle the nation's energy supply. Fox News is saying that. Breitbart is saying that. All those Republican and conservative news outlets are saying that. They said that we get 70% of our energy from fossil fuels. Biden has declared war on American oil and gas, making us more dependent on our enemies for our basic energy needs. So you know me, I went and tried to look up what the truth is. Here's what the truth says. According to the United States Renewable Energy Fact Sheet, 79% of the nation's energy does come from fossil fuels, 8.4% from nuclear power, and 12.5% from renewable energy sources. Importantly, in 2019, renewables surpassed coal in the amount of energy provided to the United States and has continued this trend since 2019. Wind and solar are the fastest growing renewable sources. So it's not that the Biden administration is ignoring or fighting a war against oil and coal. The reality is that the cost of energy per BTU British thermal unit generated has actually become cheaper for solar, wind, geothermal, tidal power, hydroelectric power has become cheaper than getting that energy from burning coal. Period. That's a dollars and cents, decision. If it's going to cost you $5 to get the energy from coal, and it's going to cost you $4 to get the energy from wind and solar and geothermal and it's cleaner. And it's cleaner. You ain't got to clean it up and so on. of course you're going to go with the $4. Why wouldn't you go with the $4? That's just stupid, to make that statement. But that's what is going on right now. And of course, because the media is owned by the same people that, in my view, that control the Republican Party. Right. They're just saying stuff that's just not true.
Right, because their buddies make money from the old way of doing things, and they want to keep that going. They want to keep that money pumping. So the new way of doing things is other people get money, and they don't want that.
So they claim that, according to this Fox News report, said that the Biden administration has made the United States more dependent on foreign sources of energy rather than less. But an article written by Robert Rapier in Forbes magazine, he says, surprise, the U.S. Is still energy independent. This article was written in March of last year, says U.S. net imports have been declining since 2005 as a result of hydraulic fracturing. Is that what they call it? Fracturing? Hydrofracking. Last year, U.S. net imports of petroleum and petroleum products like gasoline, diesel, and jet fuel averaged 12.5 million barrels per day. By the time President Obama left office, the number had declined to 4.8 barrels per day. During Obama's last month in office, the number had dropped to 4.2 barrels per day. When Trump took over, the downward trend did continue, and net exports averaged something like 635,000 barrels per year. But for the year 2020 and onward, the United States became a net exporter for the first time in modern history. So the United States has not been more dependent on foreign energy. It's the other way around. Foreign sources are dependent on the United States because it's the United States who produces more net oil that they're able to sell, because the United States produces a lot of oil but doesn't use all of the oil that it produces. It sells that oil to other countries. Right. Because the energy that they would have gotten from the oil that they sell to other countries, they're getting that energy from wind and solar and geothermal, hydroelectric, and tidal. I mean, this is not that complicated, okay? Right. The second thing that the Fox News report said about the disaster that Biden has made of his administration, he says, don't enforce the border. Biden is letting hundreds of thousands of potential criminals, terrorists, welfare recipients. How can you be a welfare recipient coming into the country? You would have already been in the country and been a citizen in order for you to get welfare. Right. Right. But I guess they're
attacking all foreigners.
But what they do is that they got welfare recipients must be running across the border from Texas into Mexico. And then coming back from Mexico, sneaking across the border.
No, basically what they're, like you said, they're attacking anybody that's a foreigner that they feel they came into the country. And, once they got here, they was able to get,
And just naming them all kind of, stuff, right? That they're criminals, they're terrorists, they're welfare recipients, they're enemies of the United States.
When most of them are very helpful to the country, to be quite honest. I mean, there's a few, but most of them.
They are the least criminally oriented people in the country.
Probably the most hardworking in the country.
Yep. So Truth came out, went to an article by Anna Giaratelli that talks about illegal crossings at the borders. The number of immigrants arrested for attempting to cross the border illegally has dropped off significantly in the weeks since the Biden administration rescinded Public Health Policy Title 42, according to the government statistics. Illegal immigrant arrests dropped 44% between the 6 weeks leading up to May 11th, when the policy expired, and the 6 weeks afterward. The Border Patrol apprehended approximately 160,000 people in the 6 weeks after May 12th. Agents averaged between 13,000 and 29,000 arrests each week since then. Border Patrol recorded approximately 285,000 as opposed to 160,000. 285,000 arrests in the 6 weeks leading up to May 11th, when agents made between 34,000 and 68,000 arrests per week. So the Biden administration has cut the number of illegal crossings to the United States in the last two or 3 months, almost in half, by 44%. You haven't heard a word of that in the media. Wow. Not a single word, not a single time have they even mentioned this.
Wow.
Now, every day leading up to the end of the enforcement of Title 42, every day leading up to that, we were told there's going to be this invasion. We haven't been able to control the border all this time. Now it's going to get worse and worse. It's just terrible. The Biden administration hasn't figured it out. Oh, it's just terrible, terrible, terrible. Then May 11th happens, no invasion. May 12th happens, no invasion. 2 months after May 12th, no invasion. We're almost half the number of people coming across the border illegally today than before Title 42 expired. Not a word from the media, not a word. You would think that the media would say, well, you know, we said that there was going to be 12,000 people a day coming, or 13,000 a day coming across the border. Now it's only 4,000 a day. We were wrong. How about that? How about you actually say to the public, you were wrong. You said something that patently was not true.
Well, you know, I guess they don't want nobody coming through. So 4,000 is probably a lot. So, and that's what they'll say. You got thousands of them coming through the border when there's much less than.
See, but if it had been Donald Trump and you had a 2% drop in illegal border crossings, he would have been saying, see, you know, my policies work and we're keeping those criminals out of the country and whatnot. But it's Joe Biden. He cuts illegal immigration or border crossings in half, and we get crickets. You know, we get no reaction at all. Wow. How about devalue? The third thing the Fox News report of these 7 things they claim show the Biden administration as a horrible administration. The third thing was devalue the nation's currency through inflation. They're saying this is something that Biden is doing, right? That he's devaluing the nation's currency through inflation. Inflation was up nearly 9% since Biden came in office. So we understand that erodes the value of the currency. The truth is, year over year inflation, we talked about this before, is down to 3%. Month over month, if we talk about May to June, inflation was at 0.1%, which would annualize at 1.2%, well under the Federal Reserve's goal of a 2% inflation rate. So that's just simply untrue what the Fox News is saying. Fourth, the Fox News report says that the Biden administration is seeking to destroy the nation's finances by running up the debt by multiple trillions of dollars, like he's doing this on purpose, right? And they go on to say, no president in modern times has so recklessly pushed our nation into debt as rapidly as Biden through his $4 trillion in spending paid for with red ink. Now, he probably was listening to me, you know, when this was being said, because I complained, I'm still complaining, that we wrote a check of $6 trillion, $6 trillion that we wrote in 2020 to pay for getting out of the worst results of this COVID-19 pandemic. I understand that it needed to be done. I'm not saying that it needed to be done the way that they did it, but I understand why they did it.
Right.
I complain. I felt $6 trillion was a check that you wrote today for money that you hope is going to appear in our bank accounts sometime in the future. What if that future doesn't happen? But as it turned out, the economy reinflated itself, and much of that money that was going to need to be gotten from a higher base of income to tax, that is actually occurring. We have higher income now. We have more people working now. So there's more taxes being collected now.
Right.
Therefore, there's more money to be able to pay on that debt.
Right.
I don't think it's enough, but at least that's the mechanism, you know, that was agreed on. A report in Investopedia, May 17th of this year, said how much of the $31 trillion in U.S. debt is the president responsible for, and which presidents increased the debt the most. So far, the national debt has grown by about $2.5 trillion since Biden took office, largely driven by the COVID-19 relief measures to facilitate the recovery from the recession. According to estimates by the Congressional Budget Office, Biden's American Rescue Plan would add another $1.9 trillion to the national debt by 2031. So that's the $4 trillion that the Fox report was talking about. Biden also signed a bipartisan infrastructure bill into law that provides funding for improvements to roads, bridges, public transit, drinking water, and expanded access to the internet and other initiatives. They didn't put into this report, but they should have put in there. He also put in, got a law passed to allow the funding of developing a microchips and semiconductor manufacturing capability in the United States.
Nice.
And if it were me, I would do that and make the United States as a country a partner in the business. So as that business grew, that asset growth would appear on the balance sheet of the United States. And you'd get some revenue from the businesses that you're going to be getting started through the use of American tax dollars. Rather than for that money going to private businesses alone, I think the American public should get some of the benefit, from that. But all that being said, the Biden administration is not trying to destroy the finances of the country, through increasing the country's debt. The Biden administration was just as creative as they knew how to be. I'm not saying they were as creative as they could have been, but they were as creative as they knew how to be to deal with the results of the recession and the pandemic and try to get the country back on its feet. Clearly, the country is back on its feet. So what they did worked from that perspective. You still owe that money, though. So we got work to do on that. But when you talk about the $7 trillion in debt that was that increased under Trump, that occurred because Trump got passed a major tax cut, a 41% decrease in corporate taxes and an 8% decrease in personal income taxes, which cost the country something in the area of $450 billion a year. So over the course of a 10-year period, that added $4.5 trillion to the debt. Not counting how much money you got to pay for the interest on that money. If interest rates were 5% and you borrowed $450 billion in a year, you're talking about $200 billion or 200. Is it 200 or 20? Yeah. So half of that, 10% of that would be, so it would be 20. $20 billion in interest on top that you would owe on top of the $450 billion a year that you were borrowing. So I know we only got 3 minutes. The Fox report said that Biden was trying to divide the nation rather than unite the nation. And they claim rich versus poor, black versus white, gay versus straight, rural versus urban. Biden promised unity. Instead, he pits groups against each other. This is the identity politics of the left and is the opposite of e pluribus unum. Now, who do you know that's dividing the country? Do you see the Democrats dividing the country into blacks against whites and gay versus straights? Who do we know that's doing that? All day, every day. Ron DeSantis, and I'm not even going to go through all of the names of these people. The truth is, the Republican Party is the biggest threat. This is according to an article, Zach Beauchamp, the Republican Revolt Against Democracy, in Vox magazine. It says the Republican Party is the biggest threat to American democracy today. It is a radical obstructionist faction that has become hostile to the most basic democratic norms that the other side should get to wield power when it wins elections. The Republicans don't believe in that. If they lose elections, they still want to keep power. If they win elections, they want more power.
Right.
Republicans are embracing violence. America to them means those Americans who support Trump and believe the 2020 election was stolen from them. They don't believe in, Americans as a whole. Sixth, Fox News claimed that Biden wants to dumb down and indoctrinate our children with anti-American propaganda in the schools. The truth is, more than 4 in 10 Republicans don't want schools teaching the history of racism whatsoever. More than 4 in 10 Republicans, that's according to a Monmouth University report or poll. Over 75% of voters approve the teaching of history, the history of racism in public schools, according to 94% of Democrats and 75% of independents. So Democrats are fine with teaching true history. Independents are fine with teaching true history. It's the Republicans who have a problem with teaching true history. Schools are typically not explicitly teaching students critical race theory in the first place, even though the Republicans keep making this statement. The public acts is what I was trying to say to you before. The public acts on its perceptions of the world around them. Whoever controls the message controls how the public will react. And then with this issue about letting criminals out on the street, the Republicans were the ones who wanted to reduce prison populations, to reduce the amount of money that we had to spend on prisons. So how did they get to be the ones that were championing reducing or creating criminal justice reform, and now they're complaining that it's the Biden administration doing what the Republicans asked to be done? This is just the insanity of what we see going on in our country today. But thank you all for listening to us and supporting us. I hope that you all start learning to call in. We need to get your feedback, but we'll see you all on Monday here at Living for the People at 91.3 FM WBNY. See you all then.